Good evening, folks. Well done for tuning in. It's the final stage of the 5th round of the FIA European Rally Championship. It's the Rally of Corsica, the rally of 10,000 turns. And in the first 10 stages, we've already had some fantastic action. The island of Corsica, famous for its mountains, wild boar and cheeses. An amazing island full of character, beauty and grace. And once a year, it echoes to the sound of horsepower. I'm Jake Sanson, beside me is Andrew Coley, and we've got the last stage, the one that will decide who wins the 2013 Tour de Corse and joins the likes of such champions as Didier Auriol, Carlos Sainz, Colin McRae, Peter Solberg and Sebastian Loeb as winner of one of the most amazing events in rallying. Andrew, I can't wait.
No, very much looking forward to this one. Pretty finely balanced. It's the final stage. There it is, 26.70 kilometres. Sarola Liamoni 2. Cows on the mountain. Let's hope we don't see them on the road. We did yesterday.
Oh, no, they're just taking their position on the spectators.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And definitely one driver very much taken by surprise, but we should be able to have a look in a few moments' time at what's happened so far. Here we are. So Craig Breen led on day one, clouted a bank, took a tyre off the rim. Unfortunately then today, stage 7, he hit the bridge parapet backwards. You can see damaged the car there, dropped behind Sarrazin into 4th. Managed to get back in front and then has dropped back behind him again. So a bit of a tight battle for Breen. I'm not quite sure he's got the settings right for the fight. Jan Kopecky, first stage of day 2, caught napping big time. Bouffier took 15.9 seconds off him, then another 6 seconds, had a 20-second lead. Kopecky fought back though, 8.8 seconds back on special stage 9, but then he lost a further 2.3. So this man currently leads. Brian Bouffier. He's won one of the classics, Monte Carlo. He'd love to win a second one here in Corsica. He lost the Jana Rally by 0.5 of a second to Jan Kopecky. He led there by 10.6. Here, he leads by 13.0. They've gone for different setups, for different weather, and it's all going to come down to this final stage. So here we go, very much looking forward to it. 13 seconds between Bouffier and Kopecky. And can Breen overhaul Sarrazin for 3rd? If he can, then that will be, I believe, his 4th podium in a row.
There's some outside interest as well for the local favourites. Francois Delacour, the veteran, in 5th position as well, in 3 minutes within the leader. And then, of course, the youngster, Julien Morin, impressing here at Corsica. And then we've got the Production Cup battle as well, as Aigner and Boniface go head-to-head. There's a minute between them, but anything can still happen in the final stage. It's one of the toughest on the rally, and there's a 50-50 chance now it could rain. And with both drivers, Bouffier and Kopecky, splitting their strategies, one gambling dry, one gambling wet, it could go either way. Join us in a minute. It's going to be a classic. An incredible final stage awaits us. 26.7 kilometres in length. The second longest stage of the entire rally. 22 degrees Celsius and a 20% chance of rain, although you can't really take that into consideration. The island of Corsica changes in a split second. Boniface will lead off from Aigner, and then the local boys, Leandri, Morin and Delacour, with Sarrazin still in the mix for a podium, Breen there as well, and then the ultimate fight. Brian Bouffier and Jan Kopecky.
Very much looking forward to seeing that. Down on the start line, we've got the McGann again of Boniface, and basically not given up, but now a minute behind Aigner. He will need Aigner to have a problem. 2-wheel drive McGann. If the weather comes, it's not going to go in his favour, whatever happens. So he'll be hoping for a dry run. He's away. We haven't got an onboard camera with him, if I remember correctly, unless they've stuck one on there at lunchtime. So we'll see some wonderful helicopter shots and get some idea of the road conditions. Julian Porter is at the end of the stage. He says the road is dry. There is a cloud base, a bit of sun, no rain at the moment. And that's what some of the drivers will be hoping for, and some of them won't. We've touched on the gamble between the top 2 drivers, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail nearer the time. But tyre choices have been interesting as well. Most people have gone for softs. One person has gone for hards, and we'll go through the list as the stage develops.
Well, Jean-Pierre Nicolas, the general coordinator of the ERC, stated that this particular stage is a beautiful, picturesque road, starting off with a twisty climb under the trees for the first 3 kilometres, and then for the next 10 or so, it's all fast and it's all wide, plenty of open spaces, a great pleasure to drive as soon as you can get into a good rhythm. But the last 5 kilometres are the quick descent to the finish near the beach, and as he said many times before, this stage, and it had to be the last one of the day, is very hard on brakes. So who has got the balance right, Andrew?
Well, all weekend they've had to try and get it right, haven't they? We saw a lot of people struggling with it yesterday with incorrect tyre choice. A lot of people gone for softs and it ended up being warmer. And then in the evening, some of them went for hards, they couldn't heat them up. Then we had the brake issues, in particular the live stage yesterday had a lot of heavy braking zones, so not unexpected. Kubica was one of those to struggle. If you're only just joining us now and hoping to see the Formula 1 driver in action, I'm afraid he is a goner. So he was here yesterday and he had a fuel issue on the final stage. We weren't sure if he'd run out of fuel, if it was an electrical problem, an ECU problem. The engineers went out to it at the end of the day. He was hoping to come back for leg bonus points, but he is not here today. So shame for Kubica, because I think Jake, he'd taken quite a sensible approach to this rally.
Definitely. There's an amazing amount of maturity shown by Kubica this time compared to the last 2 times. He'd done 1 gravel and 1 tarmac, and on both occasions he dropped the ball and made the mistake. This time,
having
however,
been rapid as well.
Exactly. This time, however, he's got on with the job, done it very, very carefully, maturely, and he got his way into the lead purely off his own back. He just waited for everything around it to come to him, and this is great potential. If you're still in doubt as to whether or not Robert Kubica has got what it takes to be a rally driver, if Formula 1 doesn't come his way again, those rumours, I think, are starting now to be quashed.
Yeah, I think it was Chris Meek who said prior to the start of the rally, you don't have to win every stage, and Chris would admit himself it took him a while to learn that, and hopefully Kubica, we might see him out on a few more events later in the year, but not here, so we should focus on those who are. Aigner on stage at the moment in the Subaru Impreza R4, the familiar sound of a flat-bore engine.
He's about 18 minutes away from sealing the victory in the Production Cup here today. All he has to do is keep it on the island and not lose, well, lose a minute to Boniface. It's pretty much a done deal.
Yeah, 2 seconds a kilometre is extraordinarily unlikely, especially when the tide of time has gone the other way. It's gone towards Aigner so far today.
But this battle certainly has been interesting between the two. I mean, we look at Germain Boniface. It isn't easy to go up against the likes of Andreas Aigner and hold your own, and he's actually done a fairly admirable performance.
Yeah, it's not been too bad. I mean, the biggest difference really, rather than the drivers, of course, is the fact that McGann's 2-wheel drive, but I mean, that will make it a little bit lighter, and on dry tarmac, he might have stood a chance, but we've had varied conditions here, and that has fallen into the hands of Aigner. Let's have a listen in.
Links 4 kurz schnell, macht auf, wird links 4 plus voll, macht auf, 30 rechts sehr kurz, 50, links 2 plus, 50.
What's wonderful from the helicopter shots there is it's fantastic to see how twisty the road is. When you look on board here, from the helicopter you can see where the corners are going. You've got to picture it from the driver's point of view. They've had 2 recce passes. They might have been here and done the rally before, so they may have more experience than that. Breen is one who's returning. Sarazan was here in the Zero car last year, but look at these corners. They're not what we call see-through at all. Every single one of them is blind. It's known as the Rally of 10,000 Corners, and this is why. Pace notes have to be absolutely spot on.
Links 4 minus, maybe voll, in rechts 5 kurz, 150.
We've had a little maybe in there. That's the use of an English word in clearly non-English pace notes. We haven't seen that all weekend. Mickelson used to do a little bit of, if you followed the IRC before. Several drivers who use...
Perhaps there is no Austrian for maybe.
Well, maybe there isn't. That's a good point. But it's normally because phonetically the English language is very, very short. So a lot of drivers will choose to use the odd word in English.
Aigner doing okay, but
yeah, lovely job around the hairpin.
Perhaps a little bit wider than he would have liked, but the good thing is he can pace himself here. He doesn't have to push.
No, and it's about maintaining momentum as well. So rather than taking a really sharp line, you know, that hairpin isn't what we would call an impossible hairpin. So an impossible hairpin is one where you have to use the handbrake to get it round. It's not quite an open hairpin either. An open hairpin is one that you might drive just using the steering lock of the car. So somewhere in between, little nip on the bar maybe to get the rear end to go, and then on the gas and through and just carry the momentum. An impossible hairpin is much harder to carry momentum on. You almost come to a stop to spin the car directly around the apex. So you'll not be too upset. And as you say, he's a fair distance off. Let's just see who's behind him. Aigner, Boniface is behind him. He's a minute back from him after the previous special stage 10. And Aigner is 3 minutes and 27 off the back of Moran, so he's very much in no man's land. Quite a hard position to be in as a driver. Yeah, he can't push to catch up. He's got a minute's gap, so but he won't want to back off too much. If you lose the rhythm too much, it can be curtains.
Now this is his rally to lose here. He's got the Production Cup pretty much on a plate. He already has one hand on the trophy. He literally just needs to bring it home, and in about 14, 15 minutes time, he'll seal the deal quite nicely. Interesting battle in the two-wheel drive. Several drivers standing up and putting themselves in the frame. For those of our Australian and English listeners, we've got very good news to report on Molly Taylor. She has climbed her way up to 16th place overall. Very admirable performance, just behind Griazin Vasili, just 32 seconds adrift.
She tweeted earlier that finally they had the sunshine and that they had the right tyres on at the right time, so good for Molly and Seb. Best of luck to them, of course. Leandri on board now, S2000.
Yeah, he had a bit of an issue with a puncture earlier on, which has cost him some time, so he's just wanting a trouble-free final stage, and that was pretty aggressive there. Fantastic job.
That was one of the braking zones that was a little bit damper this morning, and it looks drier to me now. There are still damp patches out there, you can see them from the helicopter very clearly. But on board with Leandri.
110 à fond, pas corde. 110 à fond, pas corde. 40 mètres gauche, 110 plus 1000 on reste. 110 plus 1000 on reste. Sur droite 100 moins corde. 100 moins corde. Et gauche 110 à fond, 1000 on. 110 à fond, 1000 on. 80 mètres tenir gauche. Droite 120 1000 on. Droite 120 1000 on. Pour gauche frein. Pour
the longest straight on the stage, pretty much.
Gauche frein. Pour droite 90.
Both men working very hard.
À fond de suite.
One to talk, one to listen. Sliding through the right. And considering the changeable conditions out there, Leandri is actually doing a very fine job there.
40 mètres, tenir droite ciel à fond, sur très long gauche 100, couler en sortie. Très long gauche 100, couler en sortie.
Still plenty more to come though from Corsica. We've got a championship battle on our hands. Can Kopecky hold that 100% winning rate? We'll find out in a short while. You rejoin us on the island of Corsica as we watch probably the most impressive driver I've seen this weekend, actually, Julien Morin.
Certainly a better performance by his standards. I don't know about the most impressive. If it was the most impressive, Jake, I think we'd have to argue he'd have to be further up the running order, but I know what you mean. It was a...
Too fair. When you consider he's not an ERC regular...
No, it's certainly a good performance for him, very definitely.
Well, here's your favourite.
Yeah, there's my favourite, definitely. Yeah, despite the fact he's not up the top, it's irrelevant, I'm afraid, with Delacour. But Delacour
really,
on the right
it really
side.
couldn't matter less. And Francois Delacour has not lost any speed at all.
Let's sit with him for a minute, shall we?
70 Starlon, 70 Starlon, 75 mètres, 395 Star. Plus gauche à fond long, 150 mètres, droite long. Pendant 75 mètres, on referme 110. Ferme 110, léger gauche plein de droite, 80 volants en épingle. 75 mètres, gauche 115. Gauche 115 pendant 75 mètres, ferme 105. 50 mètres, droite 95, long. Allez, droite 95, long. 150 mètres, gauche 110, durant 100 mètres. 110 le gauche, durant 100 mètres.
Delacour pretty quick in the first 3:30. 2:20. That's a pretty good time.
Intérieur.
He was happy with the previous stage. It was damp and muddy, so it was on soft tyres and they were good, and I like the next stage. So here's a little bit of information for you. Delacour won in 1993. I've been fully geeking out between the stages. He won by 1 minute and 2 seconds from Oriol. He led from start to finish, and he won 15 of the 24 stages. So 20 years ago there were 24 stages. We've got 11 today, so it was different. You know, WRC compared to ERC, WRC has always been a day longer, but all the same, that was impressive. Escort Cosworth. The other stage wins went to Aghini, Biazion, Chatriot, Oriol and Sainz. And Gilles Panizzi, who went on to become the arch enemy of Delacour, crashed his Peugeot 106 XSI on special stage 1 when Delacour was winning back in 1993. They went on to become teammates at Peugeot years later. Wonderful to see when you hear those names and see the point at which they were in their career. McRae was in the event in a legacy. You know, it puts it in perspective how long Delacour has been at the peak of his powers. What a top bloke.
And he hasn't lost an inch of performance or a split second of speed. He's still right up there, batting back the best of them.
I must admit, one thing I'm not quite sure on, having just mentioned Colin McRae, of course, we have the Colin McRae Flat Out Award, which goes to the driver who